Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Type A, Type B podcast, where we have conversations at the intersection of productivity and creativity. So, when I was gearing up to go full time freelance, I was really excited about this kind of romanticized idea of what being a full time freelancer would look like. I was thinking I was going to be living like the artist lifestyle where I have so much time to invest in all of my creative hobbies, as well as like building all aspects of my creative career. That's just kind of what I think a lot of people expect when they go from having a 9 to 5 that they have to balance their side hustle with to doing it full time. But the reality of the situation is there are so many things that get in the way that actually makes you feel like you have less creative energy to invest in all those things that you were so excited about. You have admin stuff like sending invoices, doing taxes, you have to do sales in order to get new clients. You have to send emails. There's all of this stuff that kind of gets in the way of that creative process that is pretty different than my expectation. And I think a lot of expectations that people have when they're going into creative freelancing. And this is a really common problem when I talk to more like creative studios. So there's a lot of marketing agencies that, if at least if they're smaller, that they actually don't have as much time to do their own marketing. So they're doing amazing marketing work for all of their clients. But when it comes to their own marketing, their website, their social media, a lot of times they are pretty silent. If they do have something, it's like scattering some marketing things here and there. So they're not able to do the thing that they're actually advertising. Same with like video agencies. They are creating incredible videos for all of their clients, but when it comes to having their own presence on their website or a YouTube channel or TikTok or anything, they're pretty silent on that. Same with writers. This is kind of what I experienced when I was going into full time freelancing. At the beginning of my freelance journey, I was definitely getting a lot more writing work. And I was super excited that I was going to be finally write my novel. I have it all planned out. And now it's collecting dust in Notion. I thought I was going to be posting on my blog all the time, posting on Medium. And the more that I have been freelancing, the less time and energy that I actually have to invest in that stuff. And it's a really like tough reality of being a professional creative is that you're putting all of this effort and energy into creating stuff for your clients that it feels like you don't have any time to not only have more creative hobbies, but to even build your own personal brand. And this is something that I have dealt with, I'm still dealing with, but I think that I've found some strategies to kind of find this balance so that I'm not only focusing on client work and completely neglecting my own personal brand. So those are the tips that I'm going to share today about how I've negotiated this, but with a big caveat that it's still a work in progress. And I still wish that I did have a better balance, but we're all trying our best all the time. So the big thing here is making the transition from being a creative to a creative entrepreneur. And there's a huge emphasis on the entrepreneur part of that, that an entrepreneur isn't just the ideas person. I think that's what a lot of people think of when they close their eyes and think of what an entrepreneur is they have all of these great ideas, but that's only really the beginning stages. And same with a creative, that your creativity isn't where that ends, isn't where your role ends. An entrepreneur has so many other things that you have to focus on. And this is one of the biggest things you can have in your tool belt is knowing how to find that balance. If possible, I think that the best idea is to create a pre-launch brand kind of project checklist. So before you actually start trying to take on clients, do a small project where you can just get the base level, foundational level brand stuff taken care of. So this would include things like maybe a logo, maybe get a presence on the social media channels you know that you're going to be on and make them look nice. So if you're going to be working with a lot of other businesses, obviously creating either your LinkedIn profile or your brand's page. And even if you're not going to be super active on there, just make it look nice, have a good header, a good profile picture, a description, and then maybe like one post just introducing yourself. I've seen some people who if they know that they're not going to be active on certain channels, but people are going to be going there like looking for them, they can have a post on there that just says like coming soon, or like, hey, we're not active here, but we're active somewhere else. So I think establishing kind of that base level presence, even if you're not being active and posting on those channels, is a really good thing to do to just set you up for success, even if you're not going to have time for that. Also, creating a few really, really good website pages, even if it's just like a really good link tree that links out to important things like profiles or portfolios. I think that if you don't have time to create a full website, even if it's just a few pages, Notion is really good for creating these just landing pages or portfolios that you can kind of just introduce who you are, what your services are, or what your product is, a little bit about you, and then linking out to like contact information. I think that's kind of like base level website stuff that if you want to have a professional presence, do that at the beginning so that you're all set once you start getting clients. Also, like things, little things that might kind of add up and might be annoying if you have to take care of them later, but like a headshot and an email signature, all of this stuff, if you just take care of it beforehand, I think that your brand can kind of run on autopilot a little bit more as you are continuing to hopefully get swamped with client work. But realistically, a lot of people will start doing something on the side, not necessarily thinking that it's going to turn into an actual business. And then all of a sudden, they're swamped with all of these clients that they don't have time to deal with their actual brand. So, in that case, having this pre launch checklist isn't going to necessarily be that helpful because you might not have an official intentional launch. So there are some other strategies that I would recommend if you're kind of in the thick of this, trying to deal with finding this balance. These tips should help you with that. So first is if you are in the beginning stages, just do what you got to do. And I think keeping in mind ultimately that the purpose of your branding that you're wanting to do for your business, the end goal for that is to get new clients. So if you are getting all these offers for new clients, I would be hesitant to turn any of those down just to do brand work because clearly something about what you're doing now, whether it's your own personal social media profile or a portfolio that you have or just your network, you're doing something right that is already getting you to your end goal in these beginning stages. So I think that keeping that in mind and being okay with not doing a ton of brand stuff at the beginning in these really like hectic stages is okay. But I think that keep in the back of your mind what you can do to increase this brand work and to make it better is really important in these stages. So do what you can. Like if you are doing work for a client and a project goes really, really well, maybe like write down some stats of the results that they had from that, or write down some testimonials that people are giving you, or take a clip of if you're a video producer, take a clip of a video that you're making and keep that in your back pocket so that when you do kind of put out a reel or something that you have that, even if you're not going to edit it right now. Just taking notes of all these little things and putting them in some kind of a folder can make it easier for you to, if you do have, let's say, half a day or something where it's like, hey, I don't have any client work today, I can slot in some stuff. You have a good library of stuff to pull from. I also like the idea of doing the really like low key building in public kind of content. I think that that's some of my favorite content to see online of people just giving me like a background into what they're doing as a business owner. So there's a lot of these things that are super like low effort that you can just do as you're going throughout your day-to-day, your business life. One of them is like a non-talking day in the life. So just take like a 1-second clip throughout your workday a couple of times and you end up with a like 20-second video or something, edit it together really quickly and just put it out so people can kind of see what you're doing. So even though it's not necessarily like official marketing stuff, a lot of people like to see what the people that they're thinking of working with, what their kind of workday looks like and what their process is. So I think those are really, really easy things to do some marketing, even if you don't have a ton of time. Also, like providing quick snapshots of what you're working on. I have seen this from a lot of marketing agencies, a lot of smaller marketing agencies, that they just say like, hey, here are some really cool projects we have lined up for the month. And whether you show that with a short video clip or a picture of a mood board or even just typing it out. Stuff like that is just kind of giving your audience some engagement, even if you don't have time to do something a little bit more extensive. And a lot of people do this on their LinkedIn too. If you do it on your personal LinkedIn, I love seeing this. There's a lot of freelance writers who are just like, "Hey, here are my goals that I'm going for right now. Here are some projects that I started." Just kind of these business check-ins that other people, if they're entrepreneurs, they can look to you for inspiration, but your clients can also say they can also see that you are working and you're actively doing stuff so they can understand maybe if they're not super active in marketing, like this is what they're doing. It kind of gives them some proof that you're, on top of things. And then once you've got a little bit more consistency in your client work, so if you've moved past these super beginning stages where providing really, really great service to your clients isn't so much of well, I'm never going to say it's not a priority, but it's a little bit more on autopilot. Then I think even if you are busy, treat yourself like a slightly lower priority client and schedule time and budget to be able to do your marketing stuff. And even if it's just an hour a week or 2 hours a month or something, treating yourself like a client will help to give you that accountability to actually do brand work. Because at some point, no matter how many clients you get, if you're trying to like level up to the next caliber of your creative practice, you're going to have to do some marketing because it might start to get in the way of your perceived credibility if you don't really have anything on the marketing front. So I think doing things like blocking your calendar, my weeks are a little bit more, they're pretty meeting heavy and it's not super consistent the days that I do and don't have meetings. So I try to plan this on a weekly basis that it's like, okay, I see that I don't have that many meetings this day. So I'm going to block out 3 hours that day, or if I can, maybe block out the whole day where I can work on my own personal brand stuff and don't allow myself to work on anything else during that time because I'm giving myself the respect and the time as if I am an actual client. And you can also, you don't necessarily have to do this time block if you're pretty good at just managing your time and you like doing more of a checklist kind of situation. You can just say, okay, I want to be able to do X posts a week. I want to be able to create X case studies per quarter. Any of these deliverables that you want to create, which are based on like a plan that you take the time to lay it out and figure out what is the minimum amount of time and effort that you can put into it to get the results that you need if you're really crunched on time. Creating this checklist and just making sure that you plan out your time accordingly to be able to deliver on those and don't let yourself not do it. Just like you wouldn't let yourself not deliver to a client. And I think it's really important here to templatize as much as possible if you're finding yourself struggling to actually fit in these tasks. This is why I really like my Notion content database, because a lot of my marketing work that I do for my own personal brand is like content driven. So I have all of these templates that if I want to create a new blog post or if I want to create a new video, I just click a button that automatically populates all the different pieces I have to do there. So if I'm creating a short video, then I have these sections where it's like, fill out the hook here. What are your 3 questions that you're going to be talking about during that? How are you going to wrap it up? And then set a template for editing too. So for videos, this is really important that I already have things like laid out. I know what is going to be around the actual video that I'm creating. So then I just drag the clip in there and I'm good to go. That obviously once you're more advanced in your marketing, you don't want everything to look exactly the same. But if you're just starting out and you're really struggling to have this time to dedicate to your personal brand building, having these templates is everything. And it also makes it a lot easier to lead into this next point that I'm going to touch on, which is outsourcing. You might find that you truly do not have enough time to do this branding work, whether it's for your personal brand or if you have like a full-blown agency. You might not have enough time to do that. And that's where you might have to look into outsourcing. If you have to make the decision between like, oh, I'd have to give up this really, really great project in order to work on my personal brand, and it's something that I don't want to do, that is a decision that a lot of people are faced with. And especially as a creative entrepreneur, I think it's one of the hardest things that you have to deal with is knowing when to let go and when to hang on. And branding, if you are really, really passionate about the client work that you're doing, branding is one place where you can perhaps hire someone on a freelance or a part-time basis so they can take care of some of the stuff that you don't have time to do. And that's where these templates come in handy, where you can just say, hey, these are the things that I need to create. And if you need to be on camera, then have the person that you're hiring create a script outline for you, or create, I don't know, a first draft of all of your social media posts, that they can kind of take care of some of that. It's not necessarily grunt work because a lot of it is creative work, but some of the more time consuming work that you don't have time to take on. Or you could take a different approach with it where you're still outsourcing, but maybe you want to hire someone else to help you with some of your client work that can help you with your research or with some editing or any of the things that are easier for you to hand off, so that you can still have your hands in both the branding aspect of your agency and the client work. So I think this is something that, more often than not, if you are at a place where you are getting tons and tons of client work and you're having to be faced with the thought of saying no to things just to be able to grow your brand, this is where you're probably going to eventually be. And I have a whole episode on outsourcing your creative work if you want to learn more about this, because it is a huge thing. And I know that as a creative person, and most creative people hold their process very, very close to their heart, and their art very, very close to their heart. So it's a hard thing to hand off. So if you want some tips on how to do this well, that you're not sacrificing your own creative vision, listen to that episode. So this episode was just a short and sweet one. I just want to wrap up by talking about the importance of having a brand, a really strong brand as a creative. In this episode, I think we're mostly talking about creative agencies, whether that's a broader agency that you bring a couple of other people onto, or your own personal brand. And ultimately, this is what differentiates you. There are so many people who can do incredible work, whether you're a photographer or a marketer or a video producer or a podcast producer, whatever you are. There are a lot of people who can probably do the same thing that you do and maybe just add like a slightly different flair to it. But your personal brand is what really connects people and makes people realize, this is who I want to be doing business with. I could get mostly the same deliverable from all of these different people, but your brand is what helps you resonate with other people, and it's what helps you make someone believe that you understand them and that you are going to be the one to give them the guidance they need to get whatever result they're looking for. And it puts a little bit of personality behind your brand too. It makes it more fun. I think if you don't have necessarily a brand behind the work that you're doing, it can feel a little bit, I don't know, like rinse and repeat is how I felt when I'm working with clients, because you kind of get any client. If you don't have your brand built out, you're not being super targeted about who you're bringing in. But when you have this brand, then you're speaking to a very, very specific audience who already knows exactly what they're getting from you. They're coming to you because of your personality. So I think it just allows you to have a little bit more fun and get a little bit more meaning out of your work, because you're being so specific about the whole, for lack of a better word, vibe of your brand. And it also helps you demonstrate your commitment to creativity too. No matter what kind of a creative practice or agency that you have, you're going to likely be specialized in one thing or a few things. But if you put the time and the effort into building your own personal brand, so let's say you are a photographer or something and you have a photography studio, everyone can see from your portfolio that you have incredible photography skills. But if you play with your personal brand and do some of this marketing stuff and you do some social media stuff, you have really, really good writing, like I think it just shows you as an overall more well-rounded creative powerhouse that is more fun, I think, as the person who's actually running that creative practice, but also it gives someone more confidence and energizes people a little bit more when they're looking for a potential photographer in that instance to work with. And it's also the last thing that I will wrap up here too, is it's so necessary if you want to be a thought leader in your space. I think a lot of creative people, I know me personally and a lot of other people I've talked to, it is kind of a dream to be, on the stage at like Adobe Max or something, or any kind of creative conference, or being featured in magazines where people are going to you to hear about what your creative practice is. And if you don't have that brand, whether it's for your agency or for your personal brand, you are not going to be as successful with like getting that recognition as a thought leader. So in the long term, even if you don't know exactly how you're going to end up there, if this is something that you want to be seen as a leader in your space, building that personal brand is going to be so, so important. So, as hard as it is to try to balance that with client work, I think probably one of the top 3 hardest things that I've noticed from going from a side hustler to a full-time freelancer with my creative practice. It's hard, but it's definitely well worth it. So thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Type A Type B podcast, and I will see you on the next episode.